Alright, so I played a game recently called UNSIGHTED. It's a very good game, with a slightly rocky start. I'll be honest, the beginning didn't grab me at all, and it's pretty much a fever dream which I've abandoned for months before picking up the game again. And I'm very glad I did. It's a definite recommendation. What is it about? The automatons were created by humans to ease their lives, to take on chores, record stories and do mundane tasks of all sorts. Life was easy, until one day a meteor crashed and gave automatons sentience. The result caused a split and made humanity resent the newly created race of machines. War torn apart everything and caused a horrible catastrophe, turning most every automaton into the mindless unsighted. And now, there's a ticking clock on every automaton's life as anima runs out. I was presented with what's pretty much crosscode 2, and I loved crosscode. Although Unsighted is quite a bit shorter. I played on the lowest difficulty and don't judge me, and it took me around 7 hours. There are modes I didn't touch and more stuff I didn't collect, also it probably would have taken a lot more time if I didn't get curious one time and found a blueprint list on the wiki, getting hookshot, or grappling hook, how normal people would call it, before I was supposed to have it. That definitely sped everything along significantly. Regardless. What did I like? The exploration. I do not enjoy Metroidvanias, flat out. I think the vast majority of them either have too much backtracking or too much gimmicky nonsense or some idiotic design decisions which should have stayed on the SNES. Unsighted suffers from the same problems, but here's the thing. It suffers from them at first. It's possible to just craft a hookshot early, it's possible to do bosses out of order, it's possible to do a whole lot of stuff without any particular direction. Not being 100% of the time forced into a very linear path, going back and forth every single fucking time, and instead guessing what would be the solution to any particular roadblock was enjoyable here. But the beginning is the only rough part, where the player can't even jump up. There are multiple solutions sometimes. Either jumping around, stacking boxes, using shuriken or the hookshot, freezing the water and lava with the ice thrower and or the freezing grenades. There are honest to god options, and that's what nearly every Metroidvania fails at. I wasn't always railroaded into using a green key with a green door and then a red key with a red door. I could try to figure out how to approach everything at my own pace and through different means. I absolutely adore when games give me the options. Deus Ex comes to mind. And gaming needs more Deus Ex. I also enjoyed the combat, although multiple opponents was a little rough. I generally don't enjoy combat in most games playing for the story, but here, I sometimes went out of my way to get a few fights in. The parry reminded me of God of War and how nearly 2 decades ago I've been parrying and dodging everything on the PSP and PS2 on the maximum difficulty. Oh man, I still remember doing that. That was a challenge where you just have to parry every attack, and if you take damage once, poof, you lose. And those guys, they don't mess around. Anyway, there are also a variety of different weapons, although a majority of variations of certain types. For example, there are multiple swords and axes. The player can't really get any other melee types, like fists, staves, daggers or whatever. Ranged got more options, and there's a reload system which, again, reminded me of another game series. Where you press it at just the right moment and it becomes instant. I've also enjoyed the gift system, although I guess it's a lot more dramatic if I didn't turn the clock off. The meteor shards are a precious resource which player can use on themselves or give as a gift to others. Unless we become unsighted. And with everyone having a limited lifespan, it could be a very difficult choice. Even the little fairy following the player could run out and turn into unsighted. It's a very depressing story, so much so that I was too much of a baby to play it right. By the way, it reminded me of Hades and Zelda respectively, with the gifts of Hades and Zelda little fairy character. What did I dislike? Well, like I said, the beginning. The opening scene is a bit pretentious. That's kind of it. Not much to say about it. Originally I remembered something really bad about it, but after replaying it again just now I can confidently say that it doesn't do a good job of selling me on the game. But knowing what I know now, seeing the flashback, the characters and their backstory, all of it does connect nicely. It's just not gonna sell anyone on the strong points of the game. And instead it's gonna look like some sort of, I don't know, Blade Runner knockoff. After the prologue, there's a bit of time spent exploring, looking for the boss and the new tools to navigate the maze of a city and so on. So my problem is, the player doesn't just doesn't have anything, so there are so many blocked paths that frequently it's just bumping against another dead end and finally finding the one path which does work. That is very Metroidvania-like. But I gotta say, coming back to those problematic areas after unlocking everything, it felt good. Definitely felt way better than obstacles which were impossible before and now not even in the way. Like the aquarium where the little spiky roller things just go above the water, but if you use a hook shot, you're actually above the spiky things. They don't even hurt you anymore. But if you use the freezing of the water, those can be a huge problem. Anyway, so the combat also can be difficult with multiple opponents, even on low difficulty. The enemies don't wait for the player to stop blocking. The attacks can come in a torrent of hits, especially the ranged enemies, who don't hit hard, but cause a short stagger which can leave the player exposed again. All things considered, the combat is actually really easy. I just went through the prologue again and I've beaten the 3 mutated monstrosities due to the fact that they just have one attack, but attack with a consistent rhythm. Those are the most difficult opponents in the game, and I just beaten them in the prologue with completely basic equipment. Meanwhile, I almost died a few fights before those monstrosities, against the most basic tiny bots and a few shooting enemies. It's still way better than the games where enemies dance around the player while the player fights 1v1, but it's something to keep in mind anyway. The crowds can just be problematic. Now problem is the music. I won't say it's outright bad. I enjoyed the museum, village and the Forge songs. Forge was somehow both funky and metal, depending on the heat level. Oh, and the dog one. The dog one is always good. But the rest, especially that area in the prologue, boy, I hated that song so much. It was downright lazy, like some sort of automaton farts mixed with a fan in the background. Also, another problem is the UI. While usually fine, it runs into some problems with repetition. Best example is given the meteorite gifts. The NPC will repeat this exact same line every single time, and for some it's 3 pages or more. And some vendors do multiple pages of messages before you get to trading, upgrading or gifting. And every time player wants to upgrade, they have to go through all that again. Open the menu, select the item, play it out the animation, close the blah 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 upgraded pop-up, and repeat it all over again. For every single weapon. 5 times. It's definitely very tedious. Thankfully there aren't many options, and the tasks are usually split between NPCs, so it's at least not possible to click the wrong option multiple times in a row. I don't think any of those complaints are huge, but they do add up. More than the sum of its parts and yada yada yada. Anyway, I did enjoy it and it's a fun game. It just has a few kinks.